As the 1994 NBA playoffs tipped off, no team seemed more destined for a quick exit than the Denver Nuggets. For starters, history was working against them. No number 8 seed had ever toppled a number 1 seed in the NBA postseason. And the Nuggets weren't going up against just any number 1 seed either. Denver was taking on the 63-win Seattle SuperSonics, a juggernaut led by future Hall-of-Famer Gary Payton and perennial All-Star Shawn Kemp. The Nuggets, it seemed, were cooked. Instead, thanks to the outsized efforts of their superstar center, the Nuggets did the impossible, vanquishing the top-seeded Sonics in perhaps the most stunning upset in NBA history. Let's be real here. The Denver Nuggets of the early to mid-1990s were mediocre, to put it kindly. But the Nuggets did have one thing going for them during that time. Dikembe Mutombo, a 7'2" behemoth with an even greater wingspan, the DRC native was a defensive stalwart who went 4th overall to the Nuggets in the '91 draft following a mesmerizing run at Georgetown. He was named Big East Defensive Player of the Year twice with the Hoyas and averaged 13 points, 11 rebounds, and almost 4.5 blocks per game over his final 2 college seasons. And his defensive acumen very much translated to the NBA. Get this, in 1990-91, the season before Mutombo debuted, the Nuggets finished 27th out of the NBA's 27 teams in defensive rating. The following season, with the fresh-faced Mutombo holding down their front court, the Nuggets improved to 13th. That season, by the way, Mutombo not only led the Nuggets in minutes per game, but he became, at the time, just the second rookie in NBA history to average at least 15 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game. For his efforts, he was named an All-Star for the first of 8 times and finished second in Rookie of the Year voting to Larry Johnson. Mutombo was a stud. Plain and simple. A rim protector so effective and versatile that he was seemingly designed in a lab. And he had panache to boot. Famously, Mutombo would wag his finger after blocking an opponent's shot as if to say, "Not in my house." As he explained years later, Mutombo adopted the finger wag because he wanted respect, and simply shaking his head after blocking an opponent's shot wasn't working. But it quickly became impossible not to respect Mutombo, whose impregnable defense and continually improving all-around game fueled steady improvement for the rebuilding Nuggets. In Mutombo's first season with Denver, the Nuggets added 4 wins to their previous year's miserable total of 20. The following season, as Mutombo improved his efficiency and was even more prolific as a rebounder and shot blocker, the Nuggets improved by 12 wins. And in 93-94, Mutombo's first of 3 straight seasons as the league leader in blocks, the Nuggets improved by another 6 victories, finishing with a winning record for the first time in 4 years. Now at 42-40, Denver was hardly a juggernaut, but still, this was a major triumph for a team that only a few years prior posted the worst record in the NBA. Especially because those 42 wins were enough for Denver to sneak into the playoffs. Believe it or not, the Nuggets, despite having no All-Stars and despite spending most of the season hovering below 500, managed to secure the number 8 spot in the Western Conference. And that, making the playoffs, was supposed to be the cherry on top of their respectable season. They had admirably snapped a 4-year playoff drought, and they had earned the right to get smacked around by the Seattle SuperSonics in the first round of the postseason. That was the Nuggets' fate, unquestionably. After all, not only had a number 8 seed never defeated a number 1 seed in the NBA postseason, but this Sonics team was absolutely stacked. At 63-19, Seattle had by far the best record in the NBA, and they were coming into the playoffs having won 17 of their final 19 regular season contests. And sure enough, the Sonics manhandled the Nuggets over the first 2 games of their best-of-5 first-round matchup. Seattle took an enormous lead into halftime of Game 1 and ended up winning by 24 points. Game 2 followed a similar script. And just like that, the Sonics were on the verge of a 3-game sweep, as expected. But just as all hope seemed lost for Denver, Mutombo, the Nuggets' rock, put his team on his back and basically told the Sonics, "Not in my house." In Game 3 back in Denver, with the home team playing for their lives, the Nuggets came out guns blazing. They exploded for 41 points in the first quarter and ultimately locked up a commanding victory behind a 31-point outburst from Reggie Williams and a 19-point, 13-rebound, 6-block performance from Mutombo. And Mount Mutombo just wouldn't give the Sonics an inch. In Game 4, Mutombo's 10 points, 16 rebounds, and 8 blocks helped the Nuggets escape with an overtime victory, evening the series at 2 games apiece and forcing a decisive Game 5 back in Seattle. Also helping the Nuggets' cause that night? LaFonso Ellis' 27 points and 17 rebounds. And suddenly, against all odds, the 8th-seeded, barely above 500 Denver Nuggets were one win away from the greatest first-round upset in NBA history. The thing is though, Seattle had been almost unbeatable at home that year. The Sonics had won 39 of their 43 games at the Seattle Center Coliseum that season, and that included their breezy victories over Denver in games 1 and 2. But Mutombo was unbothered. As he put it ahead of Game 5, nobody invites you into their house. You just have to go in and get comfortable. And the Nuggets did. With their season and history on the line, the Nuggets stuck to their game plan, keeping the pace of the game slow in their attempt to neutralize Seattle's offense. The Sonics, on the other hand, tried to discombobulate the Nuggets and were in a full-court press essentially from tip-off. And what ensued was a tight, back-and-forth affair. At halftime, Seattle led by 3, and although the Sonics managed to extend that lead to double digits in the third, the Nuggets refused to quit. Mutombo kept blocking shots and scooping up rebounds, Robert Pack and Ellis kept hitting shots, and as the fourth quarter winded down, not only had Denver erased their deficit, but they were winning.
86-84, the final minute of the season for Denver or for Seattle. Who would have ever thought you'd put those two teams in that sentence?
With 7 seconds left, the Nuggets still led by 2. All they needed was one more stop. And they got it. Well, kind of.
Only 7 seconds in which to accomplish at least a tie.
This is not the best position to have to inbound the ball. Reggie Williams will be up and bouncing, trying to make sure that they're under pressure. Payton
short. Kendall Gill knocks it home with a half-second remaining. Tied at 88.
Yeah, overtime. For the second game in a row. For all the marbles. And the intensity of the moment was shockingly apparent in Denver's play. The Nuggets got called for 3 shot clock violations on their first 4 possessions in OT, but Seattle wasn't able to capitalize. Instead, the Nuggets eked out a lead with just under 90 seconds remaining and never looked back, holding on with the help of a record-setting block from who else? Mutombo.
Everyone said in the West, this Denver Nugget team was the least likely chance to have a chance to advance when there were about 5 teams that could win it all. Near steal.
LaFonso Ellis and then Shrimp blocked by Mutombo, a record-setting block, his 30th of the series, Pat. And touch last by Perkins.
And after a dizzying series of turnovers and misses from Seattle, the Nuggets extended their lead to 4, making it a 2-possession game with under 20 seconds remaining. And as it turned out, game over.
8 seconds, Perkins batted back out, McMillan, another 3, way short. That's it. Mutombo embraces the ball and the unlikely upset, one of the great upsets in NBA playoff history. The 8th seed, a team that was 2 games over 500 on the season. The Denver Nuggets, youngest in the NBA, have beaten the team with the best record in the NBA, the Seattle SuperSonics, and Dikembe Mutombo, one of the stars.
I mean, that reaction from Mutombo, that pure joy and utter disbelief, says it all, doesn't it? The 8th-seeded Nuggets had done it. They had knocked off the best team in basketball after going down 2 games to nothing. Unprecedented stuff. Magical stuff. And an upset made possible largely thanks to the Herculean efforts of Mutombo, whose elated collapse to the floor after the buzzer sounded remains one of the most indelible images in NBA history. Over the course of the series, Mutombo recorded 31 blocks, a new record for a 5-game playoff series. Meanwhile, he also averaged more than 12 points and 12 rebounds per game while leading the Nuggets in minutes and average game score. And he made life miserable for Kemp, who shot just 37% from the field for the series. During the regular season, the All-Star had shot almost 54%. And although the Nuggets season ended in the following round with a hard-fought 7-game loss to the Utah Jazz, that doesn't take away from how momentous and impactful their first-round upset was. To this day, the Nuggets' stunning upset over Seattle remains proof positive that anything can happen in the playoffs. And that series, meanwhile, was also a deserving showcase for Mutombo, an eventual Hall-of-Famer whose defensive brilliance demanded the postseason spotlight and a national audience. There aren't many players, after all, who end up with 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. And by the time Mutombo retired, he had more blocks than every player in NBA history other than Hakeem Olajuwon. Still, for all the accolades he received throughout his unforgettable career, Mutombo's greatest moment may well have come on the sweat-soaked floor of the Seattle Center Coliseum, where he and his Nuggets teammates proved that nothing is impossible. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button.